welcome to the Sunday Morning Cornerman. This week on the SMC, we discuss all the relevant fights of UFC on ESPN +7, UFC St. Petersburg. I will do all of this with the co-host of the SMC, Keith Shillan. Keith, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Off to a wonderful start.
Yeah. So listen, Keith, the UFC made its second stop in Russia. The first time was Moscow. This time, St. Petersburg, Mother Russia, hasn't been a place they've gone there a lot, but they've got a lot of fighters from there. And I have to be honest, I wasn't excited about this card on paper, and I wasn't excited about this card on canvas. Now, let's do something different than what we normally do on these to keep the fans' interest, to keep my interest. Your interest is already there. You're the hardest of hardcores. Let's deconstruct this card.
Okay,
let's start at the beginning. Who, in your opinion, who or what was this card meant to serve? When they put this card together, is it a fighter that this card is really about? Is it Russia? Is it on some level Khabib? Why does this card exist?
Wow, that's a really tough question. Why did this card get put together? Obviously, that's a tough question. I don't know. I would have to probably say to display Russian talent. I mean, it's such a rich field of fighters right now coming from that area. So I think that is the best thing they could do. Based on the time difference, it's really, really hard to do a card in Russia with your top stars, with your Habibs, with your Valentina Shevchenko. But it is a way to you got to draw the hardcore fans, no matter what card you put on. You could put it on early morning at ESPN on a Saturday, and it's a way to show your top talent who aren't names like Habib and Shevchenko and Andrei Arlovski and people like that. So I think that's what they tried doing.
Going into this, who do you think stood to gain the most? I mean, Overeem's at the top. He's been at the top before. He's fighting a guy sort of ranked near him. But if, he goes out and does what he did, and we'll get to that in a second, does that give him a huge push? Who was the person going into this that was like, all right? Well,
when they originally planned it, I think Alexander Volkov was the guy that they had in mind. A tall Russian going against a legendary heavyweight who has a pretty decent name. If you're a fan of MMA, chances are you know who Alistair Overeem is. So I think Alexander Volkov kind of was the guy. When whatever happened, we still don't even know what happened with him. There's Russian reports out there that he might have popped hot for something. That's where it seems like probably likely happened. They kind of got scrambling. They needed to get a ranked heavyweight because this is the main event. They went with the local Russian Alexei Oleinik. But at this point, at his age and as many wins as I think we kind of know what we have with him. So I think that's why this card might not seem to make as much sense as you'd think. Because every fight night we have, we kind of have the narrative that they're trying to establish. I think this just turned into, hey, it's an area in the world that is such a hotbed. Let's just try to display these fighters in their home country.
All right, well, let's start with the main event. Alistair Overeem, one thing we knew going into this fight is these guys are no strangers to a cage. Alistair Overeem is 44-17 going into this fight. Alexei Oleinik was 57-11, which, both tremendously impressive records. Overeem gets the win. It was a TKO, knees and ground and pound, but Oleinik had his moments. So, was he ever really a huge threat in your mind to Alistair Overeem? Is this kind of like had Overeem lost this fight, would you have felt like, all right, he's done? Or was Oleinik live enough guy that had he won, it might have just been his trajectory goes up and Overeem just stumbles?
Yeah, I would probably lean a little. It's somewhere in between those two. It definitely, if Overeem lost, then that definitely would have been a huge damper on it. It's hard to count out heavyweights no matter how many losses they get in a row because it's such a shallow division. We've seen guys have second and third runs at a later age in life. So I don't know if I would say Overeem is done, but this would be a big, massive loss. It would have been a huge step back. It's funny because heading into this fight, it seemed like everybody was saying, the only way Alexei Oleinik wins is by submission. And it's funny because I kind of really disagree with that. I thought his best chance was landing a haymaker. And it's funny how people have just ignored that chin of Alistair Overeem. The thing that's always kind of been the bane of his existence has been his chin. And I thought that was his best shot. And I thought the moments that Oleinik, it was such a weird fight. It was only, it only lasted one round, and both guys had moments. When he had his best moment is when he landed shots on the feet. He landed him. At one point, he actually seemed like he rocked Overeem. But stylistically, Overeem's his for years. I mean, going all the way back to probably the Pride days, he's been a drastically underrated ground fighter that does not. I mean, to me, Overeem is one of the better grapplers in the heavyweight division all time. I mean, he's not Fabricio Verdum, he's not Frank Mir, but I mean, he's the next tier down below that. He's a very underrated wrestler. And if you go through his career, he's had, I think they said he's got one submission loss in his entire career. Fighting, I mean, since he was in his 20s, fighting top level guys. That's really impressive. So that's why I thought that Alexei Oleinik had such. I mean, he had his back against the wall in this fight. There was not going to be a lot of avenues to win. I mean, Overeem is obviously just the level athlete between these two is night and day. Obviously, the striking, the acumen, when you compare the credentials, you got a former K1 kickboxing champion. And then you have a guy who's drastically, in my opinion, underrated in grappling in Overeem. It was just such a hard thing for Oleinik to overcome. That's why I really only gave him the puncher's chance, because at heavyweight, you catch a chin, which has always been the problem with Overeem. I thought that was the only way he could win that fight.
Yeah, a little bit of housekeeping. The loss that Keith was talking about was to Fabricio Verdum, Pride Total Elimination Absolute, 2006. May 5th, 2006, lost by Kimura in the second round. So it's been a minute, right?
Yeah, you're talking 13 years ago, and you're talking about probably – you're talking about the greatest grappler in the heavyweight division, and probably in the conversation for greatest grappler in any division. So
what do you think gets his grappling dismissed? Do you think it's and obviously he didn't have a grappling win tonight, so we're kind of going off on a tangent here. But do you think that it's because once he turned into Overeem, it became like he doesn't even look like a grappler anymore? Is it the kickboxing background? Is it is he kind of like when we talk about the wrestlers, like I'm such a great wrestler, I never wrestle? Is it kind of like his grappling was kind of like maybe to just keep him safe and with grapplers, and then he was like, I like knocking guys out?
Yeah, I think when guys, depending on what background they come from, they can kind of get almost like typecasted into that role, and I think that's kind of happened with Overeem because of the way he was built, especially years back when he was in Strikeforce, how he was this big giant, the K1 kickboxing championship and all this stuff, kind of putting all that together that you think of him as a striker. But I mean, he has really done some of his best work as a grappler. I mean, look at his last fight against Sergey Pavlovich. He took him right down and did his business there. But I just think it's just something we do. I mean, think of Czech Congo. Czech Congo is a really good grappler, and he's a guy that's kind of always been considered a striker. Another guy you want to look at that I always thought this was Patrick Cote. Patrick Cote came on the scene and he was known as a striker. Remember when I think it was UFC 50, where he dropped 50, 51, somewhere where he dropped Tito. He got that last minute call in. He got thrown in the main event against Tito. He caught that punch. He had that one moment, and then Tito put on a wrestling clinic that he did at that time. But then he just changed his whole career. And end up becoming, he started going away from the striking and really became a dominant grappler at the end of his career. And he was still till the end of his career. He was known as a grappler. Another guy that happened to him, Brad Pickett. Everyone calls him, one punch Pickett. Brad Pickett. He got categorized as a striker, but he always was a grappler. So it's just one of those things where you fall in that category, and that's where you kind of get. I think you kind of get categorized as.
All right, let's move on to the co-main event. Islam Makhachev defeated Arman Sarukian by unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. To me, I mean, this basically looked like, I mean, it had some live moments, but it looked like a Greco match to me. A lot of against the cage, a lot of what'd you see in this? I mean, did this do anything for you?
It was a great matchup, and props to, there was a lot of people that were Makhachev actually came into the fight. I know earlier this week, I don't know if he remained the biggest favorite, but at one point he was the biggest favorite on the card. Rightfully so. I mean, you got a guy who's top 15 in the world in the rankings, coming up from, he's got one loss in his career, kind of the the lesser version of Habib, his main training partner, going against a guy that most people didn't know of, making his UFC debut. And I thought Saryukin did a great job. And a lot of these people who are really big have been kind of fighting. Some guys that I really like, what's his name? Will Martin is a guy that I really respect, that does a lot of tape study, and he actually picked the upset while he technically was wrong. I thought Saryukin did enough to show that he's a threat instantly in this division, coming in, get thrown in against, like I said, a top 15 opponent in their home country in the co-main event. I mean, he had a lot of things going against him. And it's weird. He was doing so well in his wrestling. Let me back that up. He had moments of success in his wrestling that I actually thought that cost him the fight, because late in the fight, when he was winning the stand-up exchanges, he started wrestling, and that gave Makhachev the moments to kind of make reversals. He was a little bit more polished wrestler. And I think that was the experience. And it's weird. I'm going to say something that I'm sure a lot of people might disagree with me. If you take this same fight and maybe give it to me a year from now, Saryukin maybe 1 or 2 fights in the UFC, kind of get that big fight, that big organization experience, I think he might beat Makhachev, because if he decided to turn this into a striking battle, I think he was on his way to win. I had it 1-1 heading into the third round, and I just thought he got out grappled the third round. But he was winning the stand up to start the third round, and then he initiated the grappling exchange, and I just thought that was an inexperience. And I don't remember who it was. It was Hardy or Paulfeld, and one of them pointed out is that they didn't understand why he was going away from his striking and grappling. And they said, well, this is probably what he does. He's so used to grappling that he just thinks he has to do that, and he really didn't.
One thing I wanted to talk about, and so this is, I'm going to go kind of way away from something to explain where I kind of come from with this to bring it back. So when they did the MMAJA, the Journalists Association, I had talked with some friends a while ago about wanting to do that, right? This is when I first got into the game. And I kind of knew that the guys that were kind of upper in it were going to do one, because then they would, sort of retain the power of having been the ones that created it. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is this, because I always thought the best use of having a journalist association would be having a MMA Journalist Association's website. And on that website, the people that were in the Journalist Association would post the best content from throughout the entire space. So that website would be where you went for the best of the best. And then I honestly wish they would still do that. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because I want that to be clear in my mindset when people listen to this show, because I'll pull stuff from other sites that I find fascinating, and I'll cite it because I think that's what's most important. Like, I don't want to. Yeah, what I mean is, because I'm about to go into something that I saw tonight that I'm really interested in, and I want to run it by you. And so instead of just kind of like half-ass repackaging it and going, I had this idea, I'd rather just give the credit to the guy that did it. So John Morgan. And on MMA Junkie started this thing. He's maybe done it before. This is the first time I've seen it. He did an article called The Call Out Collection. And basically at the end of the fights, he kind of went over everybody that called out who. And I was pretty impressed with that. So I want to do it at the main event. Let's do that now to get caught up. Then from here on out, we'll do it. So in his call out collection, he said Overeem called for Volkov. I mean, that's pretty straightforward, right? I mean, that was supposed to be the original matchup.
Yeah, I actually
is that a matchup you still like?
Yeah, I actually have the exact quote if you want it, because of the fact that I do an article for Sherdog where I use a lot of quotes and stuff. And he said during the post-press conference, he called him out during the ESPN ESPN Plus post-fight, but he also did it during the post-press conference. This is what he said. He said, I'm still looking for that fight. I was very prepared to fight Alexander Volkov. I was looking forward to that fight. That fight did not happen tonight, but hopefully it will happen the next UFC fight will be Alexander Volkov. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The issue is we don't know what's going on with Volkov. We don't know if he did, the ruling right now is personal issues. But if it is a possible suspension, that'd be off the books. And this is a huge problem we have right now in the heavyweight division. It's like everybody is tied up. You have Volkov possibly being suspended. You have Cain Velasquez injured again. Derek Lewis is supposedly having surgery, and he's going to be out for a while. Cormier, possibly Lesnar, rumored, and he won't fight Curtis Blades. That's his teammate. Who am I forgetting? Francis Ngannou is.
Stipe's always out there, Keith.
Yeah,
let's not forget about Stipe.
That's it. I mean, that's really it. That was actually what I was going to go to the long way. I mean, because Ngannou and Junior Dos Santos is booked, so it really comes down to Stipe. And then you have, does Stipe want to fight? And two, they did fight somewhat recently ago, so does that interest people? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, not to hop off on a lot of different tangents here, but again, we talk about Stipe a lot on this podcast because he's very conspicuous by his absence. Mm-hmm. I really feel like the move for Stipe is, man, just wait it out. If you get the Cormier fight, take it. If you don't, you'll fight for the interim belt. I mean, that's how it's going to be if you just wait it out, right?
I have no problem with people with Stipe kind of waiting it out or just trying to calling because Cormier is not going to have a lot of time left. He's already talking about retiring. You're not sure if Lesnar, one, if that fight's going to happen, or two, if he'll even pass USADA. We still got to remember about that. So that's a very good possibility that Lesnar, the fight doesn't happen. And if you take a fight and you lose it and you go back to the line, you're never going to get that chance to rematch Daniel Cormier. So I'm actually with you. As a fan, I'm not liking Stipe holding out, but from his perspective, I totally understand why he's kind of just waiting and trying to hope to get that DCA fight.
And you do have to be aware of who you are. I mean, Stipe can have all the Modelo commercials he wants. It doesn't make him any more of a marketable guy. They're not like you said. He loses a fight, it's to the back of the line. Modelo commercials are not. Firefighter, Cleveland Cavalier first pitch or Cleveland Indian first pitch, Cavalier games aside. I mean, no one has marketed himself better in one area than Stipe did in that area in Cleveland. But still,
The two issues Stipe is always going to have is that there's two men out there that can jump the line anytime they want. First is Brock Lesnar. Second is John Jones. Yeah. That's two things he has going against him.
And if he waits out, and like we just said, if he waits long enough, they'll be jumping to him. So, all right, let's talk about Islam Makhachev. Morgan says somebody in the top 15. I mean, is he ready for the top 15?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just think this is one of those fights that it's going to be kind of like catchy fight where you face someone, you don't know what they are, you didn't realize how good he is. I thought this fight spoke a lot more about Saryukin than it did about Makhachev. A lot of people could be down on Makhachev because of this. They think he should have rolled him. I just think it's one of those fights where you're going to look back to 1, 2, 3 years from now and you're going to go, oh wow, this guy's good. And I think that's what's happened. Makhachev, I mean, I don't know what his record's in the UFC. I know he only has one loss in his career. I heard people comparing him to Khabib, and I heard Rashad Evans and Dan Hardy both said that from the inner circles, they said they hear he's the better version of Khabib. How true is that? I don't know. But obviously that's high enough praise. I think he definitely should get a top 15 opponent next. He probably should. He's probably long overdue anyways. He probably should have had one by now already.
Right, and the piece of housekeeping there is he does have one loss in the UFC 192. Adriano Martins. He's beaten Chris Wade, Nick Lentz, Gleason Tebow, Cajun Johnson. So, I mean, definitely he has not beaten top 15 guys yet, but he hasn't beaten chumps either. He's not out there taking out cans.
Yeah, so, and he smoked those guys too. I mean, remember he put on a wrestling clinic against Nick Lentz. He ran right through Cajun Johnson, who after that went against Hussein Habilov and lost a very controversial decision that most people thought he would win. So, I mean, that in retrospect looks like a much better win than it did at that time. So, and lightweight, I mean, unfortunately, he's in the wrong division where lightweight takes a long way to get yourself a title shot and get yourself a top 15. But, I mean, how about a Edson Barboza fight? I think that would make a lot of sense. A guy that's coming off, if you're going to get first fight against the top 15 guys, probably be against someone coming off a loss, but Barboza, maybe James Vick, who's lost 2 in a row, maybe Daniel Hooker, another guy that's lost one. I mean, I'd be cool with any of those fights.
Morgan says Gregor Gillespie. What do you think about that?
Oof. Now, from a wrestling's perspective, how can you not love that fight? I mean, you got Makhachev with his Sambo world class, and then Gregor Gillespie, a former NCAA Division I national champion wrestler. I mean, that would be a dream. But to me, from the UFC's perspective, you got 2 young, hot prospects.
I was going to ask, any thoughts of keeping those guys away from each other?
Yeah, do you want to kind of knock them off? I like the 3 guys I threw out there first to kind of see. For both of them, I actually think both of those guys should get matchups like that, fighting each other. I think Gillespie. Why do I feel like Gillespie's booked? No, he's not booked. He's not booked.
I think there's a lot of rumors about him. That's why we probably thought he was booked. His name is getting thrown around a little bit. All right, let's move on. Sergey Pavlovich knocked out Marcelo Golm in the very first round. What'd you see here? I mean, pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah, I mean, Sergey Pavlovich is a guy that I really liked from a skills perspective. The one knock I've had on him coming up from Fight Nights Global, which I really think is one of the best organizations out there developing talent. And it's something I've always kind of like when I look at prospects and people get high on them, I want to know what organization they've been fighting in. And he's won a title in Fight Nights Global. The big knock on him is that he can be he's got a great jab, very light on his feet, very athletic. We saw all the good. The negative about him has always been that his output can be key. Sometimes his output can be kind of very low, and he wasn't like that tonight. He came out guns blazing and took out a guy, Marcel Gomba, at one point had a lot of hype on him, and he just ran right through him. And I think Pavlovich his first fight in the UFC was against Alice Overeem. That obviously they threw him to the Sharks too soon, but I definitely think he made a statement to be one of the, add him to the list of heavyweights that's coming up to keep an eye on.
And Pavlovich, interestingly enough, after the fight says, according to the Morgan article, obviously according to the interview, I'm just a fighter. I only have to fight and win, and it's not my job to tell the world if I made the statement with my win or not. I'll leave it to the journalists. Now I only want to relax and not think about anything. So is that what we do? Do we get to pick, Keith? Is that what he's saying? You and I, we get to choose?
Who should he fight next? Yeah, let's do it. All
right, go ahead. What do you got?
Let me think. I wasn't planned for this, but I'm gonna throw out. I'm kind of cheating looking at a name. How about the winner of Andrei Arlovski versus Augusto Sakai, who's fighting next week?
I like that. What do you think? So let's say it's Arlovski. What do you think? You think Arlovski still has enough to give this kid a good fight?
A crafty veteran, good athlete. I mean, that's the big thing that stands out. Pavlovich is that he's such a good athlete, and obviously Arlovski is a good athlete. And Sakai is just this huge, massive guy with nice crisp boxer, power, good in the clinch. I think both guys would be good tests, but I actually think I'd take Pavlovich over both of them right now. But to me, it's the right step up. You don't go from the first floor to the fourth floor. You got to go to the second, third. Slowly make your way up. And I think that would be a nice step up.
And we talk about these guys, these professional fighters, right? These guys that find a way to win. Arlovski's been in there enough that if Pavlovich isn't clean, Arlovski's going to find the path to victory. He's not going to let this kid go in there, like Johnny Walker go crazy and just stumble into a victory. If Pavlovich doesn't have his shit together, Arlovski's going to find a W. So
another guy you could do with is Shamil Abdurakhimov, who won on the prelims. They're both on the same schedule right now. Not that Arlovski and Augusto Sakai wouldn't be, because they're just fighting a week from now. But a lot of times you could try to find guys on the same schedule. When you got guys, sometimes I see people pick someone. They're like, "Oh, take the winner of this fight." Well, that those guys aren't fighting for 2 months, so you got to add 2 months, and then you figure the recovery. Usually, a quick turnaround is 3 months. So you're talking about, does he really want to turn 7 months from now? So you try to find time when you book guys. Try to find, for those people out there who love doing those Facebook posts, try to find guys close to the within a month of both ways. I think a month before, a month after. That's kind of the ballpark you want to look at.
All right, let's move on to the ladies. Number 7, Roxanne Modafferi defeated number 12, Antonina Shevchenko, by split decision. I don't know. I mean, I had
who scored it to Shevchenko. I gave the first and the third for Shevchenko. That said, I thought Modafferi could win all 3 rounds. So if you scored it 30-27 for Modafferi or 29-28, something like that, I'm okay with that. The difference is, as I thought the damage that Shevchenko did on the feet was more than Modafferi, because the problem is Modafferi kind of took her down and really didn't do much with it. She had a lot of top control, but to me, I thought the better the striking. I thought Shevchenko did enough in the beginning of the first round before she got taken down with about 20-25 seconds left in the round. And that most people, that stole the first round. Same thing in the third round. There was kind of a lot of back and forth. Modafferi had a couple takedowns. But I thought that striking the moments in the beginning of the third round was enough for Shevchenko. But I am in the vast minority, and I got no issue with anybody who gave it to Modafferi. To me, the thing that really just jumps out of this fight is there is a huge flaw in Antonina Shevchenko's game. And being that she has this judo background like her sister, she is nowhere near as polished in the grappling than her sister is.
Yeah, and when you take a look at the stats, and when we post this on YouTube, I'll try my best to get these fight metrics that I'm looking at right now up on the video. It really is what a split decision is built on, which is a tale of two different disciplines being dominated by two different fighters. So if you look at it, so round one, so all 3 rounds, Antonina Shevchenko outstruck Roxanne Modafferi, both in total and percentages. So she was 26, 17, and 21 for rounds 1, 2, and 3 respectively, to Modafferi's 11, 14, and 8 in the third round. But Modafferi found 2 takedowns in the first, 1 takedown in the second, and 2 takedowns in the third. And as we know, I've been talking about this for a while. I think you and I have talked about it before. We got to figure out a more effective way to score these takedowns, because people have been gaming the takedown for a long time. And I think it's like you get the takedown and maybe you have to have them down for a certain amount of time, or you have to then advance the position. Because there's a lot of, these takedowns do not tell the story. Now, in Modafferi's defense, she had some control time, right? She was on top for a minute.
Yeah. So this is not like the best example of over scoring takedowns, but there are tons of examples where I believe sometimes takedowns get overscored.
I agree.
But like I said, I am in the minority in this one, and I'm okay with anybody. I thought Modafferi, the difference between this is what you see a veteran. Did you see how Modafferi stuck to a game plan and she just kept going with it and she knew what she was working? That's a difference. Hey, buddy.
This is my just for everybody watching on the YouTube channel. This is my son. He just got home and he's trying to video bomb the podcast. So we'll get back to our conversation. But he
probably scored that fight better than I did.
He probably did. All right, bud. I love you.
So see how Modafferi, she knew it way she could win. She stuck to it. She wrote a game plan how you should be. And to me, that's the difference in experience between what she did and what Saryukin did, where he kind of, in my opinion, he gave away a fight because of his inexperience.
Yeah.
And oh my God, Shevchenko dig for an underhook. Good Lord. I mean, she kept trying to push the head away, which you want to do, but you got to dig the other side with the underhook. She was holding on to these wizards too much when she should have been fighting inside for underhooks. Good Lord. And if she's getting out-wrested by Roxanne Modafferi, she's in some big trouble, because there's a lot better wrestlers out there than Roxanne Modafferi.
Now, what Roxanne got the win, obviously, and in the post-fight, she's trying to do big things, Keith. She wants Cyborg. Do you think she should get her?
No.
Okay. So
obviously, she was just joking.
She was kidding around, yeah. But I mean, I don't know what's next for her. I mean, I think that was fun.
I actually thought Megan O'Leary did a good job. Not Megan O'Leary. Karen Bryant did a good job on the after a show on ESPN Plus, she went through the rankings and she said, "Hey, Alexis Davis is one spot above you. Didn't have an opponent. Modafari wasn't, she wasn't against it. She didn't call anybody out, but she's like, sure, I'll take anybody in front and top of me. I think that fight makes a lot of sense. You know, but one thing I hate is when fighters say, I want someone above me. I hate when people say that. They'll like have anybody above me. Well, there's always got to be someone below getting the shot. So it's got to go both ways. You can't always be the person asking. Not picking on Roxanne, but just in general. So, Alexis Davis make a fight. Maybe like a Mario Romero Barella or something, a long, lengthy fighter like that.
I kind of like what Chael said. Not everybody does this, but Chael said a thousand times, the next fight starts at the end of that fight. So you got to go into the fight saying, if I win this fight, what's next? You start booking the fight because that's if you sort of plant that seed, then social media blows up, and this is how fights get built. Like you're just saying somebody's name in the post-fight interview is where a lot of these fights come from.
And as long as it makes sense, you got to know. You kind of have to know where you are, where your range. Who I always thought was really good at this was Sam Alvey. I remember like Sam Alvey would come out and I would like look forward to his call out, and I'd be disappointed that if his fight went to a decision and they went to a commercial break, they ran out of time, we didn't get to hear who he'd call out. I enjoyed it, and what I loved about Sam is that he kind of knows he's right. I like when guys know what range they're in, and they don't throw out a guy. You get your first win in the UFC, and you're asking for a top 15 opponent.
Right. She's not trying to leapfrog anybody. He's just trying to sort of move up the ladder.
Hey, Alexis Davis, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that'd be a very interesting matchup between the two.
I agree. All right, the last of the main event or main card fights, or the first of the main card fights, depending on how you look at it. Krzysztof Jojko defeated Alan Amadowski by unanimous decision, 30-25, 30-26, 30-26. I thought Jojko looked good in here. He's on a 1-3 in his last 4, but he's not losing to chumps. Brad Tavares, Uriah Hall, David Branch.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, you're looking at maybe he's getting his pink slip, and on the other hand, it's like he's fighting top quality opponents. It seems like he took a lot out of those fights and put it into this fight. He looked sharp, I thought.
Yeah, Jojko was a guy that before the David Branch fight, he had a lot of buzz on him. A lot of people thought he was like a dark horse for a title contender, and I think he's still really young. I think I don't think he's even 30 yet. So I think we've talked about this in the past that sometimes we kind of will write fighters off a little too soon. I don't know if this is the fight to kind of jump back on the Krzysztof Jojko hype train because he did take on debutante in Alan Amadowski. And you know who I think the big winner of this fight is a guy that we saw last week. I think Jalen Turner is the big winner, and I'll tell you why. Last week I was screaming that Jalen Turner is the worst wrestler in UFC, and Jalen doesn't have that title anymore. I think Alan Amadowski has taken it from Jalen Turner. Good Lord, was his wrestling bad. I mean, there was one point where Jojko shot in on the leg, completely missed it, rolled over to his back, and just rolled through and just took Amadowski down. In the third period, at one point, he shot – I think his shot was so far away and so telegraphed that a JV wrestler in Rhode Island could stuff that takedown, and he still got down Amadowski very easily. Dude, you got to spend – if you're Amadowski, and you want to do this MMA thing, man, you got to spend some time in the wrestling room, man. You got to find some wrestlers. I mean, you're out there. You're from – you're not that far from Russia. There are some killer Russian wrestlers out there.
I think we're going to start. I think we're going to start a little segment where we compile all your call outs, and then we'll maybe put it up on Instagram or something. Because you take some shots, man. You want the smoke.
Oh.
Now it's Rhode Island JV. Rhode Island JV kids are like, Keith, what the hell ever do to you?
What's up,
They're
man?
like, we're out here. We're embracing the grind.
Yeah.
Keith's out here shitting on us on the SMC.
Yeah, all right. We'll change it to middle school wrestling. Listen, Amadowski, I mean, he was making Krzysztof Jojko look like Cael Sanderson with or Jordan Burroughs with his wrestling. I'm like, give me a break, dude. Get in the wrestling room.
Oh, speaking of that, what do you think about Ben Askren and Jordan Burroughs before I forget?
I think Jordan Burroughs is going to kill him. But
really?
It's fun. Yeah, I mean, not kill him, but Jordan Burroughs said it best on the Ariel Helwani show. He's been training he's not training for Robbie Lawler and Jorge Masvidal. He's been training for the best wrestlers in the world. This is in a wrestling match. Now, obviously, MMA fight, this is different. And you know, Ben Askren was a 2-time Hodge Trophy winner. So, I mean, his wrestling is way up there. But Jordan Burroughs is the best wrestler in the world.
Right.
And one of the best pound-for-pound wrestlers in the world. And it wasn't that long ago where he was considered the best pound-for-pound wrestler in the world. Askren's a little bit bigger than him, so that should make a difference. But, yeah, I'd be very surprised if Jordan Burroughs loses to Ben Askren.
You know, it's funny. I
still fun for the sport, though.
Yeah, crazy Jordan Burroughs story. I was in Virginia, and I ran into Jordan Burroughs' grandmother at like a restaurant, and I was reading his Twitter, and somehow, I don't know how I connected the two. Maybe she got out and said it's my grandson's a wrestler or whatever. So then I'm talking to Jordan Burroughs on Twitter because I'm talking to his grandmother. But I'm interested to see that. I found out the other day that Tay Edwards, who fights over at the lab, I guess he wrestled against Jordan Burroughs in college and lost to him, and he's like wants to get it. So I might head over to the lab and talk to Tay Edwards just about Jordan Burroughs. And then I'm thinking age-wise.
He just got out wrestled by Dennis Bermudez, so relax there a little bit, Jordan Burroughs. I mean,
I think Jamie Varner might have wrestled against Ben Askren, if I'm getting my ages correctly, because he was talking about the whole Marty from Nebraska thing. So I may try and break that fight down with those two guys. Anyway, let's move on to preliminary.
If either one of those guys say that Ben Askren's going to win, then they're full of shit. Jordan Burroughs is going to win. I mean, you're talking about Ben Askren reached the Olympics. Jordan Burroughs won the Olympics.
So is this something that's being televised? It is, right?
No? I think it's televised on Flow Wrestling, if I'm sure. I was actually checking my schedule. If I had it off, I was going to go and try to cover it for one of the websites, but
that's pretty cool.
I can't get it. It's just going to be too hard to get off. But I would love to see it. There's actually some good. If you love amateur wrestling, this is really smart of the amateur wrestling scene to get Ben Askren. He's such a hot commodity right now. And he's obviously a world-class wrestler to use this to kind of promote, a sport that I love. I think good job for Jordan Burroughs, good job for Ben Askren.
Right, and they're promoting the sport. And also, if you're Ben Askren, you have a lot more to gain here than lose, right? I mean, everybody's expecting Jordan Burroughs to win. I mean, of course, Askren would take the match. I'm surprised Jordan took it. Probably thinks he's better.
Well, I think it's two reasons. I think he thinks he's going to win. And if you could build off your name, your publicity by beating Ben Askren, you know, I could build your name in the wrestling world, but you could build your name in the MMA world. And he's talked about possibly coming to MMA for at least one match. If you got a guy who people see beat Ben Askren in wrestling, the buzz of that is alone. So it kind of works out great for both of them.
I have a theory. You ready? I'm gonna throw it to you, and then we'll move on to the prelims. You ready for my theory?
Sure.
They wrestle, and then Jordan Burroughs negotiates an MMA fight with Ben Askren. His one fight against Ben Askren in the UFC, and he gets paid $1 million, $500,000 or $1 million, like one big money fight with Ben Askren. I don't know that he'll win it.
Well, I know
on the strength of the wrestling victory, he'll try and negotiate an MMA fight with him. Yeah,
I know they really like each other. So neither one will talk trash. Like Ben Askren is like refusing to talk trash in this one, and even Jordan was like, "Come on, man, you got to talk a little bit. You got to hype this up." You know, and Jordan's not the trash talker. He's like, Ben's got to be the one who trash talks, and he's like, Ben just likes him too much.
All right, let's move on to the prelim card. Movsar Evloev defeated Sungwoo Choi. Unanimous decision, 29-27, 29-27, 29-26. Anything there for you?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Evloev looked fantastic. You got a former M1 global champion, which is what we talked about earlier about having a good organization being a champion. That kind of lights up. I don't know if he moved up to featherweight for this matchup. I don't know if he's too small for the weight class or Choi is just huge. They talked about how big Choi. He looked a lot smaller, so it might be a little bit of a combination of both or what. But Evloev, he looked like a really good contender, and his wrestling was on point. Because you can see a good wrestler from a great wrestler. A great wrestler gets shoot. I mean, his shot was fast and turning the corner. I mean, he looked fantastic. And then he had great top control. And I loved how Hardy and Felder pointed out where he's clamping onto limbs. He's holding onto the ankle, not letting him get up, doing little things that top wrestlers do. I like Evloev. I think he could be a very strong asset in either division, featherweight or bantamweight. But I'd like to see him go down to bantamweight because he looked a little undersized.
Moving on, Sultan Aliev defeated Kita Nakamura by unanimous decision, 30-27 all the way around. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was probably the most boring fight of the matchup. Sultan Aliev, he's really improved his stand up. I mean, this was supposed to be just a grinding wrestler, not even that good of a wrestler, not like a guy like we talked about. But yeah, I mean, he won the matchup. I thought Nakamura should have been a lot more aggressive. I thought he kind of gave away rounds. But Sultan Aliev, he announced his retirement after this fight, so that was kind of weird. He picked up a win. I think he's 2-2 in the UFC now. It might be one of those ones. There might be more to the story than we know, but yeah, out of nowhere, he announced his retirement.
Alexander Yakovlev defeated Alex Da Silva by submission via guillotine choke, round 2. How about this one?
Man, Yakovlev looked. I mean, he moved down to lightweight for the first time in a long time. He looked. I mean, he looked really skinny. Like, he looked terrible. But he uses this basically turned into a wrestling match, and Yakovlev was the better wrestler. And he had a really weird submission. He looked like he had like a front headlock type submission. I don't know if he was singing his rap songs into the guy's ear and couldn't take it off. Yakovlev, the Russian rapper that hasn't fought in 2 years. But another thing that stands out is Da Silva was 21. If you go through the record, it was a lot against a lot of tomato cans. And this is what's going to happen when you fight tomato cans. This is the difference between him and other guys we just talked about, like Evelev, who's winning titles in a good organization like M1 Global. And Da Silva had fought tomato cans, so I think they kind of when it started getting tough, he found a way to check out because he's never been in that position. You need to get these guys coming up need to get in bad positions. They need to fight tough guys on their way up, or when it starts getting hard, they're not going to know what to do. And I felt like he panicked, and that's what led to the submission.
All right, Shamil Abdurakhimov defeated Marcin Tybura by TKO via strikes, round number 2. How about this one?
I thought Abdurakhimov looked really good. I thought he came out. He seemed like he knew he was the better fighter, and right from the beginning, he was coming out firing, throwing hard with bad intentions. Tybura is a guy who kind of likes to get in this grinding in the clinch fight, and he never once closed the distance. Abdurakhimov didn't let him. He was beating him to every exchange. I thought it was the best win of his career of Abdurakhimov, and he was a guy that. He's had good moments, he had bad moments, and if he might be turning the corner, and we might have like a dark horse. Not that I think he could be a title contender, but a guy that could sneak back into the top 10, top 7 in the ranking, something like that. So nice win by Abdurakhimov.
All right, brace yourself, because this next fight is going to be a butchering of names of epic proportions. This is like the St. Valentine's Day massacre of a guy trying to say 2 people's names. Mikhail Alexeychuk defeated Gadsimurad Antigulov by KO via strikes. That's not too bad, Keith.
That was actually really good. The Antigulov, I think you got his name perfect. And Mikhail Alexeychuk is how you say it. I write it down, but I think you were that was really close.
That wasn't bad for a guy that was like, yeah. I mean, let's call it what it is. Part of me wants to just roll the outro music and just end this damn thing. That's a walk-off, isn't it?
That's ending on a high note.
Okay, so tell me what was more impressive, Alexeychuk's KO or my pronunciation of his name? Tell me what you think.
Oh, well, both are impressive. I'm going to go with your pronunciation. Oh, man, the easy name I'm messing up on. Antigulov. Yeah, I got the easy name.
Come on, what do you know?
I'm struggling with the hard one, the easy one. He had a terrible strategy. I mean, he just was like ducking his head and just charging not setting anything up, just charging. And Alexeychuk just made a pay. He caught him with the same uppercut about 3 or 4 times, dropped him 3 or 4 times, and it was a really impressive win. He's now 3-0 in the UFC. I mean, if you want to count that first win against Khalil Roundtree that got overturned because of a popping hot for something. But now he's 3-0 in the UFC, and he's a little undersized for the weight class at light heavyweight. But we've seen that being an advantage to some people. So he's quick, he's accurate, he's a decent wrestler, he's got good hands. He's a nice prospect.
All right, last fight of the
When
podcast.
he called out Kutalaba, Ian Kutalaba. That I thought that was a pretty good. He's fighting Glover Teixeira soon. I want to say maybe next week. But that's a good call up. They were
All
supposed
right.
to originally, they were supposed to fight in the past. The fight fell through, so that's why he called it.
All right, so you're with that fight. You're ready for
Yeah,
it.
I'm with it.
All right, so the first fight of the card, last fight of the podcast, Magomed Mustafayev defeated Rafael Fisiev by TKO via strikes, round number 1. How did start the night off?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, it's funny because Fiziev came in as one of the striking coaches for Tiger Muay Thai, one of the best kickboxing gyms in the world. He was supposed to have the advantage in the stand up, and it was Musayev that came out. He did the spinning back kick about 2 or 3 times, and one of the times he caught it clean on the chin, dropped him, and then finished him off. When he hit the ground, he was hurt, finished him off. Fantastic. One of the best knockouts of the year. A perfect way to start the card.
All right, let's get out of here in a rush. Trending up, trending down. For trending up, I had Islam Makhachev, and for trending down, I had to go with Antonina Shevchenko just because, she should be, based on everything that we believe about her, or sort of the lore, or kind of, taking what her sister is and sort of putting it on her. She should have gotten a victory over Modafferi, and again, you gave the fight to her, so it was close, but I don't feel that it should have been. Who'd you have trending up, trending down?
Yeah, I'm doubling down on Shevchenko. I think whether I thought she won or lost, it doesn't matter. She has a huge glaring weakness, and that soon to be turning 35 years old, I don't think that's going to be fixed. There's a game plan to beat her. I also think Intigoyev losing 2 in a row, that's really bad. This is a guy that had some hype not that long ago, had some hype about him. He's in back. I'll go trending up. I'll go with his opponent, Sajak. He's won 3 in a row. In the division, he's 3-0 in the UFC. He looks really good. I thought Abdar Rahimov had probably the best win of his career, so I'll put him. And the last one, I'm going to give one more. Armin Sayukin in a loss. I still think he's trending up. I thought coming in, a huge underdog, co-main event in the guy's hometown, top 15 opponent, and to almost pull out a victory, I think he's trending up.
All right, let's go to Not For Nothing. I only have a couple. Not for nothing, but it's enough already with these Shevchenko sisters and the dancing and all the bullshit. Just be fighters. I'm cool with that. I don't need to know all this. It's just too much for me, man. It's too much. Not for nothing. I am going to take someone else's Not For Nothing. I will credit them, of course. You retweeted this gentleman. There's a 1,000 reasons to quote this guy. Number 1 is his Twitter name, Lord Honky Humongous.
Yes,
Not for nothing, Joko should have used that breakdancing energy finishing the fight.
Yes, yes.
So I had to pull that one off of Twitter. And that's pretty much it for me on Not For Nothing. No, I got one more. Not for nothing, but what the hell's Paul Felder? Kevin Hart? Are we trying to get this fucking guy in everything now? Like, we just keep popping him in. He's like guest starring on TV shows. Let John Gooden and Dan Hardy do their thing. You got 2 Brits and then a redheaded Irishman. And it's like, what is he doing here? Like, he doesn't even speak with an Irish accent. I get it, but it's like they're trying to give the guy reps. Listen, just sit him next to the cage, record him doing the fight. He doesn't need to be. And then there was the one part of at the beginning when his IBF or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, it came out. His ear thing came out.
And then the guy came in, was fixing it, and he's like making all these crazy ass faces. I like Paul Felder. And listen, I think he is. This is a topic for another day. I'm gonna write this down. Guys who are, if you were to rate their analyst skills and their fighting skills, right? Each 1 to 10, who would score the highest? Gotta be DC, right?
I still put DC number 1. Yeah.
Right. If you combine both,
I love the combination of. I like Hardy and Felder together. I like this whole team. I think they're really good. They have a lot of fun. I just think the UFC's broadcast team is really, really sharp right now.
They are, and I like Gooden and Hardy. They do so much like shoulder programming. They're friends, man. They're legit friends, and that. I think Gooden and Hardy are the closest thing, and Rogan, Anik, and DC are getting there, where they like each other.
Yeah,
where they actually like each other. Yeah. No one's ever going to be Goldie and Rogan, because Goldie would fuck up, Rogan would call him out on it, and I mean they weren't the cleanest, but it was like they were friends, and it kind of made its way into the broadcast. But Gooden and Hardy are right there, man. They're good. I like them.
I agree. All right, I'll give you my not for nothings. Not for nothing. I've come up with a game plan. I mean, he just ducked his head in charge. A bull has never won a UFC fight. Don't use it yourself. Not for nothing. I don't know if anybody caught this. Tybura's head when he was getting knocked out by after heard it, banged into the camera. The cameraman on the thing hit his head twice against the back of his head against the camera. The cameraman, get out of the way, man. I mean, I know you want to get that cool shot, but bad enough the guy's getting punched by a heavyweight. He didn't need to whack his head against your camera.
You know how fighters are. He's probably going to try and get a no contest.
Yeah. He
should. Listen, I hit the camera. What do you want from me? I would have recovered. If that was TJ Dillashaw, he would have fought it.
Not for nothing. At one point, Sultan Ali turns his head and he starts blowing snot rockets in the middle of the game. Not for nothing. Blow your nose before the match. Nobody wants to see you blowing snot rockets in the middle of a match.
Dude, he knew he was retiring. He's taking a victory lap. He's like, I'm going to get away. What else can I get away with in here? I'm going to blow some snot rockets. I'm going to shut it. What was your shot? Go ahead.
Not for nothing. Russian customs held Alan Amadowski for 24 hours, only giving him water and stuff. Only one cup of water while he was cutting weight. I mean, come on, Russia. Come on. Do some research. Just Google it. Go pull up the UFC website. You can see that he's a fighter. And I'll give you one more. Not for nothing. Roxanne Modafferi, what is it? You can't say that Kieta Nakamura was your first coach and then saying you never had a coach to John Wood. They said the same story throughout the night. So what is it?
What was your shocker of the night?
Shocker, I'm going to say the spinning back fist. Spinning back kick by Musayev. The fact that the way he did it against the more decorated striker, and I'm shocked at how bad Shevchenko's wrestling is.
Yeah, I was shocked at Modafferi winning. I mean, she's kind of like, from Tough. She has a name. She's kind of the quirky chick that, she's got a little she's like a nerdy version of Diego Sanchez where she's weird and whatever. So I was surprised she got the win, but I do think that at least I'm not going to speak for everybody. From my perspective, I do put sometimes some of Valentina's stuff on Antonina, and she's not the fighter Valentina is, and I fall into that trap probably more than I should.
She reminds me of the female Luke Kumo. Remember Luke Kumo?
Yes.
So not as batshit crazy as Diego is, but still really very weird.
He's not the kid that went home because of the girl, was he? Who was the guy that went home and he's like, my girlfriend, and I can't talk to her, and he just left?
No, I can't remember. I can't remember names. They did do a Where Are They Now on that guy, and he actually married.
Figure out who he is.
He actually married that girl.
That's right.
So good for him. They actually got married to this day. But Luke Kumo was the one. He was in UFC Ultimate Fighter 2. He made it to the finals against Joe Stevenson. He looked like the 40-year-old version, and he was weird, and he didn't look like a fighter. He was kind of nerdy, but somehow made it all the way to the finals.
All right, a couple of things from the margins. Gooden said Joko used to want to fight like Robbie Lawler until he met a sports psychologist who said that it wasn't in keeping with his personality, which I found interesting.
Yeah.
This is a weird one. It might have been a not for nothing, but I don't know why this bothered me. It shouldn't. Something about Dan Hardy and Mark Goddard having a podcast together, and then Hardy calling Goddard fights that Goddard refs. I mean, I know that fighters call, Cruz calls fights for teammates and DC calls fights for teammates. It's just something weird about it. I don't know. It just didn't. It's sad.
To me, it's a conflict of interest. If Mark Goddard did something really bad, would you call him out? That's why I hate. I mean, not to go on a tangent, but I hate media members who openly root for fighters. I mean, to me, that's rule number one. Of what a media member is, you cannot be biased. That's the point.
It's interesting. I
see people do it all the time. If you interview someone, now you pretend you're like your best friends and you're going to cheer for them all the time. If I interview a fighter and I think they're going to lose a fight, I'm going to say it. I'm not going to talk them into – I mean, I got into this thing and everyone started hating on me for doing this, but a guy that I'm friends with started calling Chris Curtis a top 10 welterweight, and I called him out for it. And he was tagging Chris Curtis. They thought I was crazy and hating me for saying that Chris Curtis is not top 10. And I said, well, who's he beating? How can you call him a top 10 welterweight?
Right.
And people thought I was crazy for saying that, and why I'm so wrong. And I'm like, well, no, back it up, because he's done a bunch of interviews with you. That's why you're calling him a top 10 guy. No, back it up. Your statement, why he's a top 10. Who's he beating?
Right. It's, a lot of guys do a lot of things, and we got a guy that we're going to be trying to get on this podcast. He actually said he was available tonight. I should have reached out to him. Rodney James, Dan Tom, these guys, they end up in these gyms, man. I'm going to be honest with you. I've thought about, when I tell you that the lab couldn't be closer to me than, it's literally 2 minutes down the street from the school I teach at. But I've thought, if I started working out at that gym and I saw Ben Henderson roll his ankle before a fight, am I a member of that gym or am I a member of the media? And I can't be both.
That's right.
And I don't, if I'm only in that, if I only saw him roll that ankle because I'm a member of the gym, I would feel bad reporting on it.
Sure.
So I can't, you know what I'm saying? I have not yet figured out the way to make my peace with is the
And on
balance.
the flip side, if you're making your predictions that Ben Henderson is fighting a guy you think is going to win, are you going to pick against Ben Henderson? No, you're not gonna. You're not gonna do that. And now, because you're not gonna pick against him, even though you think he's gonna lose, you're actually lying to the public and you're not giving them the best information that you possibly could do.
Right, because you don't have any idea what anybody's doing with that information. If you're going to put it out there, you should at least let it be the thing that you believe.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's again. I'm gonna go ahead.
There's two great. I'm sorry, I might have jumped this. I wrote this down, but I might have jumped this.
No, go ahead.
The commentary team, when they were talking about the Snot Rockets, and they said Peter Yan was ducking around them because he was Cageside. I thought that was pretty funny. And another great moment of the commentary team, this is why I really like them, is when they were talking about Makhachev never getting taken down. And they were like, when he was almost getting taken down, they were like, "Ruben, is it going to be a takedown?" I thought that was really fun. I thought that was a really fun moment.
Yeah, Good and Hardy had a moment about, and it's funny because I was talking about this on our last podcast. They must have said it in some of their programming too. They were calling the Von Flu the Von Prue.
Yeah.
And how Gooden had I really like that the UFC's tried out these different combinations and figuring out the right fit. I do not, and again, I think you and I have disagreed about this in the past. I don't like DC and Cormier. I think the team is Anik, Rogan, DC, and then Anik, Cruz, and I don't know, somebody else. But I don't know. Something about Cormier.
Who don't you like together? You don't like
I don't
DC
like Cormier and Cruz together.
Oh, it's Cormier and Cruz. Okay.
It's two. They're two one up.
Sure.
One upping one another. All right. Again,
I like Cormier. I think Cormier is the best at it. I think he's got the perfect balance of technical analysis with personality, which is another reason why I like Felder and I like Hardy. I think they both the same thing. You have to have you can't just be so by the book analysis, or you can't be the other way.
Right.
That's why I think DC is the best at everything he does. He's just. You
know what, dude? Let me tell you something. I was actually talking to a wrestler, and on Twitter, if I can remember who he was, I'll let you know. But he was talking about how he thinks. Yeah, we might have been. He was telling me that he thinks that it was that DC gets too much hate in the wrestling community, despite how much he gives back to it. And I was telling him my perspective.
Oh, amateur wrestling.
Yeah, and I was telling him about my relationship with DC and why I think he's had problems in the past.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
I think DC gets hate by DC gets hate by anybody, and I don't want to sound because I'm like I can't go on a tangent about being me and American being unbiased and then talk about how great DC is. There's just things that he does that to me I think is amazing. And I think he is the perfect ambassador for the sport. I think he is just things he does. I think is great. And I remember being in Buffalo, New York, when DC fought Rumble Johnson the second time, and it was right after the towel trick that every wrestler supposedly knows about, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I wrestled forever. I didn't know about that trick, but now suddenly everyone knows about touching a towel, and regardless. But he got so much hate and booed, and I'm sitting there and watching this fight and thinking, wait, DC's the bad guy, and Anthony Johnson, who's a serial domestic violence abuser. I mean, you're just going to look into his criminal history. This is a guy that's been arrested for domestic violence multiple times. He's the good guy, and DC's the bad guy. I'm like, this is a guy his father was murdered. This is a guy who had to deal with the death of a child, which. As a dad, you're a dad, I'm a dad. I don't even like to think about it. Never mind deal with it. Like I won't even if I think about one of my children dying for a second, I will like push that thought right out of my head.
Right.
And this is the guy people root against. This is the guy he's the world champion of the world. I mean, he's the heavyweight champion of the world. He's the baddest guy on the planet, and he is spending his offseason coaching high school wrestling. I mean, who does that? Imagine LeBron James spending time coaching youth basketball
Right.
while the Lakers are playing, or whatever sport. To Mike Trout teaching little league baseball, whatever. This is the best fighter in the world, and one of the best fighters in the world, giving back to his community. How could you hate on DC? To me, that's insane.
Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you how. He did, and I'm not saying this is the truth. I'm saying this is what it is. He committed the one thing that is hard to commit in the public, the one social crime, if you will. He's corny, and he tries too hard sometimes. And I think now he's settling into now he's comfortable in his own skin. And I'm going to tell you something else about DC. When you talk about being a great ambassador, 100%, Keith, now that they're with ESPN, this is an outside shot, but now they're with ESPN, I'm going to make this prediction. DC could host Good Morning America.
Yeah,
that's the kind of guy he is.
It's so funny.
He could host Good Morning America. He is the Michael Strahan of MMA.
Yeah, dude, it's so funny before you even said it, and you said going to ESPN. That's like the thing I thought of. He's gonna be the crossover star where he's gonna leave MMA one day, and he'll be just the star. Like we've seen other sports people. Yeah, I'm 100% with you. He is the Michael Strahan of MMA.
I mean, 100%. All the things that you could think of him doing, like if I throw things out there, they wouldn't even be that crazy to you. Like if I told you DC's hosting Family Feud.
Yep.
Okay.
100%. 100%.
Good Morning America. Okay.
In a sense, if he doesn't become over that crossover, I'm gonna be disappointed because I feel like he has the potential. It's so obvious.
Him and Chael are the only ones who could.
Oh, Chael's a good one too.
But him and Chael are the only ones who could host SportsCenter. Other guys could be analysts. They could host. They could sit in and pull it off. I think.
Yeah, you know what?
Legit hosting.
Chael's a good point too. Chael's a good one too. That's a good point. So yeah, I'm with you with that though. That's a good call.
All right, so our before we let you go, it's typically about fight announcements, but I just want to talk to you about the whole Khabib thing we talked about last time. I think it should be Poirier and Conor. It's looking like Khabib and Poirier. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the only move to do. I mean, he is the interim champion. He's on this big stretch. Conor obviously makes the most money, but I mean, there's got to be a competitive nature to it. We just saw Conor get mauled. Tony Ferguson obviously has an argument, but he's got some mental health issues, and sometimes wrong place, wrong time. Yeah. Poirier was at the right part, and I don't know if you caught this, but Morgan Levy talked to Khabib about it. He was there cornering Makhachev, or not cornering, but he was there supporting Makhachev. They asked him about it, and he's all for the Poirier fight. He said that's the fight he wants.
What do you think about Conor Gaethje?
I think I would be setting fireworks in my back. I think that'd be insane. I think I don't know if that's the fight will happen. I still think it's like Conor and Nate makes a lot of sense, just from a marketable sense. But Conor versus anybody, I'm happy. I mean, like,
I'm going to say something crazy here, Keith. Conor Gaethje, you could put on as the only fight of the night. Like you could book it. You could put Conor Gaethje. You could put Conor Gaethje. I'm going to take an even further step, Keith. You could put Conor Gaethje on ESPN as a standalone fight.
Yeah,
and draw numbers.
Oh yeah, we definitely. You put Conor, and if you want to do a pay-per-view, if you put Conor versus anybody near the top 10, Conor versus
right, but him and Gaethje is something special because Gaethje's like the guy that nobody that the public doesn't know about, but I think Gaethje's the guy that people don't know his name, but they know his face. Like if you saw that kid and then you showed a clip of him backflipping, they're like, "Oh, I know that kid."
Yeah, here's a question. We just talked about DC, and we talked about how could anybody dislike him, and you gave your reason why people dislike him. Do you know a single MMA fan who doesn't not like Justin Gaethje, but love Justin Gaethje?
Yeah.
I mean, how could you not?
Listen, I call the kid the Arturo Gotti of MMA. I think that's on a lot of fronts he's that way because nobody disliked Gotti. And I interviewed Gaethje a bunch when he's in World Series of Fighting, and he's a lot more polished than when I interviewed him. Like when I interviewed Gaethje when he was in World Series of Fighting, you didn't have an interview where he didn't tell you he started wrestling at 4 years old. I mean, that was his go-to line. And now he's just his shit talking's better. He's just ready, man. I really think from a lot of perspectives, they need to make that Conor fight happen. It'd be a good fight, and I think it's winnable for Conor.
Yeah, I love that fight. I definitely think it's winnable for Conor. I agree with you there. I'm cool with anything. Gaethje, Diaz, Cerrone, Iaquinta, Ferguson.
I think the UFC
top 7 or 8 guys in that division. I am cool with any way they put it. I definitely think Poirier and Khabib need to match up, but any other way you lay it out, I'm very excited. This is just such a great division. It's
they're trying so hard to not fuck the Conor thing up that they're just trying it out.
I'm gonna say something crazy. I don't even hate if they give Conor a warm-up fight. And when I mean warm-up fight, I mean like someone nowhere near the top 15. If they put Conor on, not that it's going to happen because obviously Conor's going to get pay-per-view, but if they actually wanted to give him a warm-up fight, put him on ESPN, free TV, and you put him against, for example, Joe Duffy, who has a win against him, a guy that Conor should be able to smash right now, just a warm. I'm 100% cool with that. I'd probably be the only person to say something like that, and not that it would ever happen, but I'd be cool with that. If they want to give him a warm-up fight and then throw him in with a Gaethje or a Diaz or something like that afterwards.
I think the only way you can do a warm-up fight is at a different weight. Like he can get a warm-up fight at 170. But if you put him at 55 or I mean, he's not going back to 45, but at 55 he's got to fight for the
and they're not going to give a warm-up fight to a guy when they're probably going to pay him a ridiculous amount of money. It'd have to be one of those ones where he's taking a huge pay cut, something he just wants to be active. But to Conor versus anybody, I'm cool. Sign me up.
All right, let's finish strong. I'll give you the first. Go ahead.
Oh, finish strong. I actually forgot about it, so I'm just going to wing it. Finish strong. I love the afternoon cards. I think we should do more of that. Give me afternoon cards. And can I just talk? All right, I'm going to finish strong on this. If you're an MMA fan, don't complain about oversaturation of the sport. If you don't want to watch it, just don't watch. I love having fights every weekend. I love UFC every weekend. Give me more. I want it twice a week. I want it 3 times. Give me 3 minutes. Don't complain. If you think it's oversaturation, don't watch.
You're going to get it. PFL Thursday nights. You're going to get your Thursday night fights. You're going to get your ESPN.
I'm saying I want it from the UFC. Stop complaining about oversaturation.
Listen, if you have an issue with oversaturation, this would be my answer to that. I was not crazy about this card, but I feel like we put together a pretty good podcast on it, and I think that this was not a card where huge names were bouncing off the page, and yet they put together a good night of fights. We put together a good podcast. If you have the time and you want to watch it, like you said, either shut up and don't watch it, or sit down, watch it, and find what's good about it. Don't just say, I can't pronounce this guy's name, so fuck it. So I think that there needs to be more of, like you said, taking the approach of either or. You're either in or you're out. If you're out, shut the fuck up about it. If you're in, get in and enjoy it. All right, there you have it. Another SMC is in the books. Keith, tell people what they can read from you and where you can be followed.
All right, you can follow me at Keith Shillan MMA. So that's my last name is Shillan. It's spelled Shillan. So that's Keith Shillan MMA. I write for Sherdog, Fanside at Cageside Press, and a couple other places. I kind of skedaddle some stuff. A couple things that's coming out. My top 10 Eastern European fighters of all time should be coming out very soon. I'm not sure the exact date. And then following that up, my PFL previews every week for Sherdog. I'm going to be going through one of the PFL weight classes, doing film study, and ranking the fighters. So 1 through 12, who should be, number 1 being the person that's most likely to win it, and number 12, obviously, the one who's least likely, and all the way through. So that should be coming out Sherdog very soon.
There was a guy last year.
One weight class at a time. It won't be all that time. So it'll be one weight class a week.
Oh, God. There was a guy last year for PFL who was doing some I don't know if he's talking about his fight or not. And I was really impressed with this guy. And the reason why I'm upset, I can't remember his name, is because a PFL show with you and that guy would be a hell of a podcast. I'm trying to remember his name. I want to say Robert Watley, but let me look into it.
Okay,
I remember listening to the guy, and I was like,
lightweight. Yeah, Robert Watley. Yeah, lightweight. Yeah.
I remember thinking, this guy really knows his shit. Like, he kind of had his division pretty well broken down, and I was like, we got to get that guy on the podcast.
He went against one of the fights he went against is what's his name? I can't think of it. Former Bellator champion, the guy who beat Chandler for the title. I can't think of his name. Drawing blank. Will Brooks.
Yes.
He went against Will Brooks during the season. I can't remember who else he went, but I remember he went against Will Brooks.
That's right. Yep, I think it was Watley. So maybe we'll figure out a way to get you two guys together because as great as you and I are, we can't be on everything, Keith. So we gotta figure out a way to get. But I am fascinated. If you're gonna do that kind of legwork on the PFL, my history with the World Series of Fighting, we gotta.
Right after that, right after the PFO previews, I'm gonna roll right into the Dana White Contender Series previews.
There you go. Oh, we could do, man. Maybe we could reach out to Ray Sefo. That'd be fun. You and Ray Sefo. That'd be cool. All right, There you have it, guys. Keith's got a lot of things going on, a lot of things coming up. Follow all his stuff, listen to all his stuff. Cageside Press Podcast Network. We got Rodney James coming in doing some stuff. I got some other things I'm trying to figure out and put together. I talked to a young man whose name escapes me. I want to say it's Patrick Auger, who is a business. He leans in the business world of MMA, and he and I may do a more extensive performance bonus podcast with some MMA business stuff. So me and him might work that out, just because that fascinates me, and I got to get my head around some of this ESPN stuff and whatnot. So look for that. The best way to find it all is to follow at Cageside Pods, is to subscribe to the YouTube, is to subscribe to the SoundCloud, subscribe to the iTunes, tell your mom, tell your friends, tell everybody you know. It's the Cageside Press Podcast Network, and peace.